A good memory I have with Mom is when Grandma Anderson died, and Mom came up, and I was teaching school, and so I lived the closest, so we went to Pocatello together. And I just had a couple of days planning the funeral with her, and it was just a really tender time seeing how much my mom loved her mom.
So growing up, my mom and I would go to the commissary once a week, and she would entrust me with half of the shopping list. And if I successfully retrieved the items, then I got as a reward a Lunchables and/or bag of candy. That's my favorite memory with my mom.
One of the things that stands out, one of my favorite memories of Mom, well, I guess not a single memory, but one of the times when I really needed Mom a lot, and that was when I was on a mission 25 years ago. And far from home for the first time. Just this past week, I was reading through these, the old letters from the family that I have. I was giving a lesson on missionary work, and I was reading through all these, and Mom's, it was a great example of Mom's influence on my life, that presence that has always been there. There's a lot of chit-chat, fun chit-chat. There is a lot of gentle wisdom. There is a lot of uplift, spiritually and emotionally. And I know those letters and the sentiments behind them really carried me through on the mission, as Mom has done throughout my life.
This was in Okinawa, so I was probably about a junior in high school. And I remember riding in the car on the way home from the grocery store, I think, and you were really sad. And I asked you, "Hey Mom, what's wrong?" And you said something like, "Well, some of the sisters in the ward had a party together, and they didn't invite me, and I thought they were my friends." And it's funny because it never occurred to me that moms need to have friends. Up until that moment, as a 15, 16-year-old, I had never thought that my mother needed friends. I'd always thought that we were enough for you. But at that moment, I realized she needs more people than us, and that's kind of a funny thing that occurred to me right then.
And the things I love about you are Dad's hard work and your hard work and I guess the way you've raised Emily, and it's been a blessing to our family.
Favorite memory with Mom is coming home from college after my freshman year and sitting at the quilting loom and quilting all summer while watching British movies. That was really fun.
So our favorite memory of Mom, or my favorite memory of Mom, is when we were in Spain and she would load us all up in the bus and drive to church because Dad was already there. And even like when Joy was 1 week old, she still came to church and parallel parked the bus across the street from the bar, and all the men would come out of the bar and watch the American Lady and all her kids every Sunday. So that was a fun memory.
And my favorite memory of Mom is when she was caught playing basketball, and every time she missed, she would curse under her breath. And we were all enjoying it from the upstairs window.
When I would come home from babysitting or dates late at night, and I would go upstairs and her light was always still on, and I would look into the room and Grandpa would be fast asleep with the book on his chest, and Grandma would be awake waiting for me to check in. And sometimes we would have conversations about what happened, and sometimes it would just be, "I'm okay, Mom, good night." But it was always good for me to know that my mom was there waiting for me.
I think Mom understands that I have a little social anxiety and always really works hard to make me feel comfortable, to feel part of the family, and help me understand that I'm loved and accepted.
And one of my favorite memories of Grandma was just how she always strived to have the spirit in her home. I could tell the difference every time I went over to visit, and that was just always a good thing to feel, and it just always made me feel welcome and safe.
So a memory I have of Dad was in high school. when he packed my lunches, especially during the time that I was in plays, sometimes he would write limericks on the napkins inside my lunch bag. And that was always something that would make me, happy when I pulled him out at lunchtime.
I appreciate doing home improvement projects with Dad. He's done a lot to help us around the house, and it's always nice to come home from work and see that some work's been done on the tree house, or floor's been finished, or some lights done down in the basement. But I appreciate mostly just spending time together and some of the memories we made, cutting through live wires with a reciprocating saw and putting a screw through a pipe.
So my favorite memory with my dad is when he asked me that one Christmas to play the piano while he played the organ in the choir accompaniment, singing Alleluia. And I remember being so scared because I'd never accompanied before. And he taught me that I just got to push through every mistake. And that's why every time I play now and I make a mistake, I make a funny face like this, because that's how I get through it.
I was just graduated from high school. I had the opportunity to drive across the country from Illinois to Provo with just me and Dad and the silver Pontiac Grand Am. And so we were driving across the country, as you can imagine, just amazing car conversation for that 24-hour drive from Provo, or from Utah, Illinois, Provo. So there we were, and we were driving. We must have crossed the Utah border, and we were going through a canyon, and Dad started to get a little bit anxious. He thought I was driving too slow, and he told me, "John, why don't you pick up the speed a little bit, let's drive faster, or we're never gonna get there." So I said, "Are you sure, Dad? I'm not sure I want to do that. We're going with the flow of traffic." And he said, just go ahead and drive a little faster. So I picked up the speed at 10 or 15 miles per hour faster than what I had been doing, and he seemed satisfied, so we kept going. It probably wasn't 5 minutes later that in the rearview mirror were the police car lights pulling me over. And so I pulled over, policeman talked to me, gave me a nice hefty ticket for driving through the canyon at excessive speeds. And he went back to his car. And when he was going back to his car, I turned to my dad and I said, "Dad, are you going to pay for this ticket? You're going to get this? You told me to drive faster." And he shook his head and he said to me, "No, I don't think so. You should probably pay for this. It all comes from the same place anyway." And that was that.
And I really enjoyed finishing the basement with George.
My favorite dad memory came one Saturday morning when there was a service project that I did not want to attend, and to avoid the service project, I jumped in the shower because I assumed that the bathroom was off limits. Wrong. My dad came in and yanked me out and said that the car was leaving in 2 minutes and I had better be in there. That was a memory.
One of my fondest memories of Grandpa was when he picked me up from our home in St. Louis, and we were headed to the airport to pick up Pete from his mission. And it was pretty dark out, and he backed out of our driveway and ran over and totaled our mailbox. It's one of my favorite memories.
My favorite memory of my dad is sometime in my teenage years. I don't remember when or where, but my dad grabbed a guitar and started singing scat. And I guess that taught me that I didn't have to be so reserved and that I could let loose and enjoy myself.
One of my favorite memories of Dad would probably be the time that Dad and I went on a trip to New York City, and we wandered through some museums and we explored Greenwich Village and had a good old time for a couple of days. It's probably one of the very few experiences I can remember having with Dad where he wasn't making me work on something and do something that I didn't want to do. So that stands out.
Another fun memory that we had of Grandpa was a couple years ago we were celebrating Thanksgiving, and we were living in Arizona, so this is some time ago. And we were at the table there, we were going around the table saying some of the things that we were thankful for. When I got to Grandpa, he said, "One of the things I'm thankful for is Grandma's svelte figure." True story.
This was when we were in Washington, and I was in about probably 9th grade. And we had had a really bad day at church or after church, and all of us were arguing a lot. And finally, Dad lost his cool and said, "That's it. Everybody go to a room, lock the door, don't come back out until dinner." and he'd never done that before. So I went downstairs, and I thought, well, this is dumb. I'm going to go for a walk. And I would never go for walks before, but I said, I'm gonna go for a walk. So I walked out of our walkout basement and out the backyard and went for a walk down the street. And I feel like I was really inspired. I feel like the Spirit was leading me because there was a park across the street. So I walked across the street and into the park, and it was all set up for a wedding, and I thought, oh, that's really nice. It's a pretty wedding setup. But I went around that, and then I saw, and there were some picnic tables, and I saw kind of far off in the distance there was a man sitting on a picnic table. And I thought, I'm gonna walk over that way. And then the thought occurred to me, go over and sit by that man. And I thought, that is so weird. I'm not gonna go sit by a strange man. And I got closer and closer. And I saw that the guy on the picnic table was Dad. And so I sat next to him. And all he did was, he kind of had his head in his hands. And then he looked up and he said something like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help when our family gets that bad. And this was another kind of light bulb moment for me, because it never really occurred to me that my dad had a hard time being a dad and leading us and knowing what to do. I thought he always knew what to do. And so it was kind of like a bonding moment. It really meant a lot to me to know that my dad was trying really hard to help us, and sometimes even he didn't know what to do. So that was a really special moment for me.
The number one lesson I've learned from my parents is to be in the ward choir. Well, just kidding. That's probably not the number one lesson, but I figure other people are going to say things about reading the scriptures and praying and temple attendance and service, so I just kind of wanted to be unique.
The number one lesson that I learned from my parents was to enjoy the fellowship of the saints. So no matter where we lived, we were always engaged with the church and the church members, no matter how rich or poor they were, or if they were annoying or not. We were with them and we were enjoying their time. And that was a big part of my childhood that I appreciated.
A lesson that we learned from Dad in particular, and I remember him teaching us when we were kids, is the saying, work will win when wishy-washy wishing won't. And Dad has always been a hard worker and a good example of that.
Something that I've learned from Mom and Dad is that the gospel is true, and that it is worth all of the time and effort and sacrifice and dedication and devotion to live the gospel because it's true.
And a great lesson that I have learned is to acknowledge when I have been unfair to someone, unkind to someone, and to make it right. And to acknowledge when I have been cynical, sarcastic, and maybe a little mean and unthoughtful. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate the lesson to look for the good in everyone in all the situations.
The number one lesson I learned from Mom and Dad, I think that's easy. From Dad, the number one thing that stands out for me is humility. One of the things I remember most about Dad was when he was released as bishop, and he was called to be a ward chorister. And I remember him seeing him direct the music. And to this day, I've never seen anyone direct the music with such enthusiasm and charisma. And I could tell that Dad was giving his all to the calling. He wanted to make this song a special experience. With Dad, it has never, to my eye at least, it has never been about him. It's always been about others and what he could do for them. And that has really stood out for me as a very strong example. For Mom, what has stood out for me, and the thing that I would pass along to my kids, is Mom's ability to make others feel important. Mom has a gift for being interested in what is going on with people. She cares about people, and that, I think, shines through very evidently. You never had a sense that with Mom there were some people she liked and some people that she was trying to avoid or she didn't care to talk to. She always liked everybody, and you could see her talking with everybody. And to this day, she's the only person that I can talk on the phone with for more than a few minutes, because that's her special gift.
Because I was convinced that these were going to be worth a lot of money. Just like these basketball cards I thought would be worth a lot of money. And Dad would always tell me, he'd say, you know, John, it's nice that you like those things, but I wouldn't count on them being worth a lot of money because they don't have any value if you can't find a buyer. And I didn't really understand what he was talking about, because I had this Beckett price guide, which was a magazine, and it would list all the different cards, and it would say, this card is worth this much money. And I would say to my dad, look at the Beckett price guide, Dad. It's worth this much money. Imagine how much it's going to be worth in 10 years or 15 years. We're all going to be rich. And he said, well, that's nice that your magazine says that, but unless you can find a buyer who will purchase that card or those comic books, they don't have any value. Not a single store would buy any of my comic books, not one. And then I went onto the internet and I searched to see how much all these basketball cards might be worth, some of the best ones, and turns out it's probably more expensive to ship them than you can earn money from them. So remember that things have no value unless you can find a buyer, and that is a truth that I learned from my dad.
What we've learned from their relationship with each other is that they are a team, and that they plan together, they set their goals together, they talk about what they want to work on. They are always a team working together, and they are each other's first priority. And they don't go off and do things on their own very often, and they're always concerned about one another and working together as a team.
For their anniversary, when I was in college one year, the kids, we bought them a gift certificate to a restaurant and sent it to them in the mail as a surprise. And then later, before the date, we went to the restaurant and we gave the maitre d', we said we want to pay for their dessert and we want you to put flowers on their table when they come. We gave them their name and their description, and they were going to take care of it. Unfortunately, when Grandma and Grandpa showed up to the restaurant, Grandpa gave them the name of Mr. and Mrs. Lovejoy. And so they never realized who they were, and they never got their free flowers and free dessert. And it just shows how sometimes Grandpa was extremely corny in his love, and how forgiving Grandma is for letting him get away with it.
And I guess the thing that I appreciate most from watching Mom and Dad and their relationship is that Dad is always doing things for Mom. And it's things that Dad thinks that Mom wants him to do. But he's always doing a project, and ultimately he's always concerned about what Mom needs and if Mom is happy. And from what I can remember, my dad wasn't happy unless my mom was happy.
I appreciate how supportive you guys are to each other in your hobbies, but most especially in your callings, which have been time-consuming and challenging throughout your life, and with crazy family and whatnot. You guys have always been so supportive of each other, and it's been noticeable. And I really appreciate that and love to see that, the love you show for each other through that.
About Mom and Dad and how much I love them and their relationship. One of the things that I've always known about my dad is that he is a great protector of my mother and his wife. He will always defend her and protect her. I can tell that he loves her and cherishes that relationship more than anything. And I can tell that by the way he behaves and how he has done that consistently over all the years that I have observed them and their marriage.
Oh, what to say about how my mom and dad treat each other? Well, the kids have a saying called #relationship-goals, which I think applies here. I think mom and dad always treat each other like they're each other's number one priority. I only remember one time when dad tried to drive the car over railroad tracks when the train was already coming, that Mom really got mad at him. And I don't remember Dad ever getting mad at Mom. And that's something that I aspire to in my relationship.
I remember the Spanish tile in Mom and Dad's bathroom. And I obviously spent a lot of time in their bathroom because I memorized it. It is el amar no es mirarse el uno en el otro, sino mirar junto en la misma dirección, which means love is not to look one to another, but to look together in the same direction. And I just think Mom and Dad are perfect examples of that. You don't always share the same interests necessarily or agenda for the day, but and their long-term goals are together, and they work and love and support each other towards those most important goals.
I've never seen Dad trip Mom. I've never seen Mom accidentally buzz Dad's head when giving him a haircut, so I assume their relationship is good. I came across something else in these mission letters. Let me see. Okay, story. Dad's keys were lost, and they searched the house. $5 reward turned into $10 by Sunday evening. Mom wrote this all to me. Monday, the reward was up to $25, and the neighborhood was included in the search. They prayed several times, still no keys. Monday night, the dryer started acting up, and there was a big noise going on. Not even WD-40 could help it. And then it quit. Okay. So Mom convinced Dad to give it a try to fix it. And Dad took it apart, and you can imagine what happened. There were the keys. They were left in Dad's pants, and Mom put the pants in the dryer, and somehow they got from the dryer out of the drum and into the frame around the drum. Okay. Of course, Mom knows that the great blessing was that the only problem with the dryer was a loose screw, and so they only had to pay $6 for a part, and they now have a quiet dryer that is working perfectly well. Boy, isn't that wonderful, with triple exclamation marks. Okay. Of course, Dad says the blame is mine because I should have looked in the pockets before putting the uniform in the washer. And I, on the other hand, claim that it is not part of my job. If he wants anything in the pocket saved, he should clean them out. Then it was my fault because the uniform was just hung over the closet door, which I claim is no place for clothes, and so I will take care of them if he insists on doing that. Just a little friendly banter. Okay, so I think that's their relationship in a nutshell. Let's see, they do crazy things and then survive and make it through with a laugh at the end.
Seeing them at the helm of this amazing family that they've sculpted through their constant example of love and service.
How happy they always are and how much they love to spend time with their family.
That they're always ready to serve us as grandkids and the family and all the service that they do for us.
They are such great examples to me as a missionary, and they give the best hugs.
Grandpa is always making sure that I'm working hard, and Grandma has a nice aura around her that's really nice to be around.
They're the type of people that you always want to be around, and they make everyone feel important.
When they tried to come watch me play volleyball, but then they were late, but then we still got breakfast and spent a good time together.
Because when we don't have anything to do or we're just bored in general, you guys are always up on our doorstep with a fun new game or just something you want to do with us. And I love you guys for that.
I love it when you tell me stories about my mother when she was my age.
They always think of others before themselves, and they make me laugh, especially when Grandpa gives me his big kisses.
My favorite thing about Grandma is her caramels, and my favorite thing about Grandpa is that he's always hardworking.
They're very understanding and they always listen to you when you have something to tell them.
I like it when Grandma comes over or when I see her because I get to eat what she cooks and it's very good. And I am also very fond of Grandpa's cut off finger.
I love how on Sundays we can always just come over and there's always fresh food there just waiting to be eaten.
They're always cheerful and are helping everyone try to be really happy. Also, they make great breakfast.
My favorite thing to do when Grandma and Grandpa are over is have baking competitions.
Whenever I'm with Grandma, she makes me feel very special and loved. She's good at making everyone feel like her favorite.
They visit annually, even though they live far away.
and they hang out with us.
They organize for us to all do a family reunion together.
They spend time with us and they play with us. It makes me feel happy. They let us have candy.
When I get to read with them. And whenever we came over for Thanksgiving, I like when we went to the Arch. Grandma and Grandpa are the best.
I like it when Grandma and Grandpa come to visit because we make crafts and have baking competitions.
When he plays the ukulele.
They never get mad and they're always very nice to all of their grandchildren. I like when Grandpa teaches me to play more piano because he's a really good piano player. Make puzzles with her. He builds such cool things like a hobbit hole. Sometimes you make delicious dinners for us. They play board games. Grandpa is funny and Grandma lets me play a game on her iPad. Coloring with her.
Coloring with her? Does she put your pictures in a special spot?
Yes.
Where does she put them?
On her refrigerator.
On her refrigerator. What do you like to do with Grandpa?
I like to sit on his lap and let him read stories with me. My favorite thing is when Grandma reads me books. I liked going to the zoo with Grandpa Crochet and doing stuff with Grandma Crochet. I love my grandma and grandpa. They're nice to me. Thanks, Grandpa and Grandpa, to give me hugs and kisses. I love you, Grandpa. Hug! I love you.
I love you. I love you guys so much.
I love you, Grandma and Grandpa.
Love you.
I love you. I love you. I love you, Grandma and Grandpa.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Love you, Mom and Dad. Cheers.
Happy anniversary, Grandma and Grandpa.
I love you, Mom and Dad. You're the best. And happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. We love you.
Happy anniversary, the Big 5-0.